It's just like as far as like if Ashley was away and she saw me eating, she's like, "I didn't make that food. Who cooked you that?" So I was like,
No, I didn't do that. He surely ate my leftovers though when I was gone.
Am I echoing?
"Nah, we're live."
We always have some sort of problem. What's happening, Pops? My bad. I had to eat something. I
Everything
had
is
to
good.
eat, and I was like, man, we about to be on the show drinking beer.
Yeah.
I better get something on my stomach.
Yeah.
Well, what is episode 116. We're gonna start our study into the countries of Africa. By the way, I wanted to drop a little name. What is it? I think I did a little bit of research, little bit of googling, and maybe you can pronounce this. It's A. I'm gonna put it in. Actually, I'm gonna put it on the banner because
Okay.
ALKEBLU. All right, cool. So this was supposedly the original name of Africa before it was colonized. The whole continent was before they changed the name.
Kibulon.
Kibulon. Apparently, this was it. It translates. It's an Aboriginal word that translates to the mother of mankind or the Garden of Eden. It is an extremely old word, origin of indigenous. It could be BS, but I googled it because I was trying to find because like I know Egypt is not an African word. That was a name given to them by the Romans. It was named something else. Like a lot of countries in Africa had different names before our modern maps that we know of were made.
I think Egypt came into existence. Maybe the name they say it's a Greek name, so I'm assuming, and they started calling it Egypt maybe about in 350 BC. So it's relatively a new name. My understanding that the whole part of Africa at one time was called Ethiopia. Long before Nubia and Kemet and all that. It was like Ethiopia was the name for all the northern part of Africa. I don't know.
Well, so the name. So if the people who are tuning in are going to rewatch this show whenever we do it, the original name of Egypt before Egypt was called Egypt, it was called Kemet, what Grandpa just mentioned. But so I'm gonna give y'all a few references for books that I get my information from that y'all can look up.
What are we talking about today? I know it was like which country or something like.
So Grandpa wanted to start with Egypt. So that's the first.
Okay. No, we can start. We can start at the bottom now, man.
Well,
Egypt is fine.
Egypt.
Oh, okay.
We're gonna get there.
I just said Egypt because I couldn't think of nothing.
You should have put Egypt in the title.
That's not how we do things. Auntie told me an anecdote about her car, and now it's always the alternator. We gotta stay on brand.
But yeah, confusing with the title. The title cannot make any sense, and it cannot relate to the conversation. They just got to figure it out. It's a hot spot. It's like getting the canned goods without the labels.
You can't go back and reference.
It's like that. It's like that cake in Louisiana with the baby in it, the little baby toy. Whoever gets it, that's the good luck for the year. If you can figure out what we're talking about
from that title,
that cake is disgusting.
I agree. I don't think that cake is that great. It's people talk about it like it's some mysteriously awesome thing. But to get back on topic, so I don't know. So Grandpa wanted to do this, and we're gonna do it. It's gonna be great. He wanted to talk about all the countries in Africa. We'll start in Egypt because that's what we said yesterday. But Grandpa can change his mind. But I did research in Egypt. So a few books I looked at. One of them is Black Genesis by Robert Bivol and Thomas Brove, PhD. It talks a lot about how archaeology has a lot of racism in it, but it breaks down how basically the migration from I guess middle or lower Africa all the way up to Egypt. So what Grandpa was talking about, one of the kingdoms in Ethiopia, they would send out scouts essentially to find different places to like settle. And sometimes people just wouldn't come back. They would just settle in the new land. And, that's when trade and stuff would happen. So that's and that also leads me to the other book I read was called Christianity Before Christ, which also talks about that migration and how a lot of the names that you know about, like the stories of Heru and everything relating to Jesus and things of that nature, were originally in the Coptic Bible way back,
The
and
what
then
Bible?
the Coptic Bible. It means like the indigenous Bible or the indigenous
Okay.
like in Africa, like way before it got out to the rest of the world. Like there was
In
Christianity.
Ethiopia, right?
Yeah, it was deep in Ethiopia. So anyway, like so we'll get more into Ethiopia when we get to that part, but in that episode. But essentially, they had people go out. They went to what was called Kemet. Well, they named it Kemet, and as opposed to continuing the Coptic Christianity traditions, they just basically took and made a whole new faith system, which is why you find similar names like Ashur and Haru and Isis and things of that nature in the Egyptian pantheon, which were just taking the names from the Coptic Christianity Bible and using it and juxtaposing them into their own new stories in that area. So when they branched off and became their own empire, they took bits, like just like any other people, they took bits and pieces of the original faith system. When they got to a new place and started their own civilization, they took that and they just branched off and made their own thing. So if anybody's interested, look up those two books. It's very interesting. I do not claim to be a doctor, dyed in the wool historian, but these people who wrote these books are accredited doctors, so they did research. Look it up yourselves. Again, the Black Genesis and Christianity Before Christ. You can probably find them on Amazon if you want a hardcover. There's some places that have them like Audible where you can listen to them. There's good stuff, but that's just kind of my baseline intro to this. I know Grandpa had some other things he wanted to go into, and I know you know, oh, Archie got stuff. Go for it.
Are we gonna drink today?
Yeah. I'm sorry. I was actually when I was reading this, I got really into it. So I'm just like, let's beer in. So
I was like,
first.
we getting far into the conversation and we haven't beered in yet.
I'm so sorry, y'all. I when I was trying to make this a good episode because Grandpa was serious about it. So I tried to really like look into this stuff. But Grandpa got me excited. But Grandpa, go first. I'm sorry, I stole his thunder. What you got to drink today, Grandpa?
Well, I got some. Can you see me?
Yes. Grandpa, I told you.
Okay.
Grandpa, remember I told you not to touch the screen, and you did it anyway.
We're gonna have to add that question to the list, y'all.
No, but you no, seriously.
There we go.
Make another one. No, close it, Grandpa, close it, please. We're talking about this before the show started. We were like, you said, I'm not going to open no screens. You said, I'm not going to do it.
I was just going to make it a little lighter.
Grandpa, you got close the one you just made. It's making an echo.
Cuba, incremental change. Can y'all see me in the echo? Add it to the list.
You got to close your second thing, though. You're going to make an echo. You got to close the screen. You got to open. Grandpa, please. You got to close the screen. This is incredible. Grandpa, please. You know what's going on? Can you hear me?
Grandpa, please.
I got good sound here.
Yeah, but you have two screens open. Can you close the second screen?
Dad, you got two windows open.
I am. I was trying to find the other window.
Close one of them.
Where's the other window? Oh, okay. Okay.
That's all you gotta do. Don't worry about closing two. Just close one. This sounds like a murder. See there. Oh, he done closed two. Okay.
So,
Grandpa, can you see me? All right, Grandpa. Here's what's gonna happen. So Grandpa, you gotta log out. You gotta log out one of these screens.
he should just close the one that he can see.
I got it nice and loud.
Grandpa, you're making a huge echo. You gotta exit out one of these screens.
Oh, okay.
We talked about this, man. Like you told me, you're like, no, I'm not
and start over.
Yeah, like Grandpa 100%. He looked at me in the face and it's like, I'm like, he's like, before I got on the show, I was like, hey, Grandpa, can you see me? He was like, yeah. I'm like, okay, cool. Don't do nothing else. He's like, all right. And then
okay, how is it now?
It's still echo. You
gotta close out.
You got two of them open.
Yeah, when I saw him sit forward and then I saw the screen light up on his face, I was like, uh-oh.
Can you hear us then?
I can hear you good. But
Okay,
good. You don't need to see us.
Don't see us. Bob.
Okay. All right, go right ahead. I can hear you good now. Yeah, I got the regular old favorite, small town boy stuff. Budweiser, champagne.
That's not the champagne beer.
That's not the champagne of beer.
Huh?
That's not the champagne of beer.
It is now.
Oh, babe, you about to go crazy if you don't get that stuff out your teeth.
Yeah.
I had to flop right before we came on.
Why don't you wash it down? What y'all got today?
So since I'm out of town, I am slumming it, like for real slumming. And I should have just gone to the liquor store next door to the gas station, but I was trying to make one stop and leave and get back. So I have a drink, but we ain't gonna call it no beer.
Whoa!
That's not bad.
Whoa! I didn't expect that.
It was either this or that crap Pop's drinking, and I couldn't do that. So
this Budweiser is tasting pretty good now. I done rated it better than 5 or 6. I'm gonna give it 6.5.
6.5, Budweiser.
Your taste,
man, it's hitting on something.
Hey, your scale is like inflation. It's just getting inflated now. I think
Grandpa over here, a die-in-the-rule Democrat. He out here for real saying, I'm never gonna forget that. He told me 100%, I'm not gonna touch it. I'm not gonna touch the screen. I'm not gonna
let it go, nephew. Let it go, nephew.
I was just trying to get the sound up so I could hear,
Broke my heart.
I didn't think that I touched it,
What you got, Pooh Bear?
18th Street, finishing off that pins and needle. 8.5%. Yeah, I was like, I want a good beer. This is pretty good beer. I'm enjoying these.
I want some good beer too. I've had some Ritas before, but I don't think we haven't had the mango, have we, babe?
I don't think so.
So I'm hoping for at least a 6. I'm hoping it's gonna be 6. And then I got my classic cup too.
At least I got a cup. We moving, so I don't got no package, nothing. So I'm back to just the can today. This is Bard's beer. I've been trying to actively search for beer that Ashley can drink. So this is another. This is the original Sir June malt beer. It is truly gluten free.
You have a malt beer?
Yeah.
A gluten-free beer?
Yeah, I've been trying to find
beer. Like Red Ridge.
I've been trying to find beer that Ashley can drink. This is this contains no wheat, barley, rye, or oats, so I don't know how it's beer. But I don't know what Sir June is either. So we're gonna figure it out today. Yeah. So this is what it says in ingredients are: water, sorghum, hops, and yeast. That's it.
That's like a.
Is that how you pronounce it? Is it sorghum? I always thought it was sorghum.
Sorghum. Well, I mean, you a professor, so you know better than me. You done taught people before.
I've never eaten. I don't think I've purposely consumed it, but I feel like I always thought that's how it's pronounced. Oh, okay. Well, we're gonna see about this.
So you think?
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers,
Cheers.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you right now, my pre-rating of this is not gonna be high. I'm gonna start off thinking this is gonna be a 4.
A 4?
It smells like if you took a piece of Wonder Bread and just put it in a cup of water.
So I'll tell you this tastes like mango. So But that is good. But I think I need to add a little Tito's to it. It is 8% though, so can't be mad at that.
I don't know what alcohol is in there. What about you, Uncle Pooh?
Yeah, mine's solid. I got a solid 7. It's maybe 7.5.
7.5. Boy, you high on the hog now.
Stop saying you be rating off frivolously.
I'm got Budweiser at 6.5. Talking about I'm high on the hog. That's like giving $5 for $1.
Oh,
I'll tell you this right now. I think Grandpa would actually love this beer. It tastes
trash.
Is Joe Garbaggio. It's in the Trash Beer Hall of Fame.
The Trash Beer Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I gotta go get my Tito's. This is juice. Hold on.
Like for real. Like I'll tell you this. It's like I said. It smells like if you put some Wonder Bread in some water and let it dilute and then drank that. It tastes like it really just tastes like carbonated like bread water.
Wow.
It's not like a horrible taste, but it's not by any means good. Yeah. Like if you had to drink a beer, and this is the only way you could drink a beer, then I guess you'd have to do what you had to do. But like this is like I mean I don't know, man. It's definitely something about gluten or glutinous products that make something have a certain taste. And when you take it away, like it definitely tastes like it has 4 ingredients in it. I don't know what surgeon is, but I probably should have looked it up before I drank it because that just negates. Because we've been talking about like, well, I don't know what's in these shots. Now, showing up drinking things that said surgeon before looking it up. So I'm a scumbag who doesn't have any morals. So that's one demerit against me. But now that we done got that beer ranking out the way, let's get back to the thing at hand. Grandpa, what did you want to talk about with Egypt today? Or anybody wants to go first? I did my spiel about it.
Can you hear you?
Yeah, Grandpa, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Go first. Lead us off in this journey into the continent.
This is a learning session for me. Let somebody go first there. Maybe I can kind of add a little bit, but I'm a little slow in going first here.
Okay.
Well, I say, you were giving out your references. So Joseph Ben Yakinen, he's always talking about Egypt and teaching a lot out of its history. So that's a great reference. You can look that up on YouTube. It's a million videos of him talking about this. And John Henry Clark. I always talk about Dr. Clark. So he definitely shows a lot of the history of Egypt.
Yeah, I've had the pleasure of a meeting, at least going and listening to John Henry Clark and Joseph Ben Yakinen. And it was a pleasure.
In person?
And yeah, they used to. I used to follow them around. They come here, all of them. The Ivan Van Sertima's and everybody would make their thing. I got some books was autographed by Richard King, and I was really into it.
Stolen Legacy, right?
Is that? I got stolen George James. Books, I never met George James, but I got his book, though, Stolen Legacy. I've got Khalid Muhammad's book on Africa. But like I say, it was a pleasure to listen to Dr. Ben and John Henry Clark.
Yeah, Dr. Ben said he said he goes on a pilgrimage every year to Egypt. He said, because I got to get down in them tombs, and he said them temples and them pyramids, so I can see with myself and I can remember that this black skin of mine is the jewel of the world. So
yeah.
About that being the origin story for him, because it predates the European empires, and they try to tell you that everything is everything white is right. So it was pretty interesting. That's like I haven't listened to a lot of Dr. Ben, so I have just recently listened to that. So that was interesting. We're having this discussion.
I mean, it's also interesting because like when I think about Egypt and we talk about pyramids, like if I recall right, the Sphinx is the youngest of the wonders of the world, right? And I think they say it's about 10,000 years old, which predates pretty much any European empire by several thousand years. So if that's the youngest construction point that was finished in Egypt, and that was before the empire, it's amazing that, and I'm only going to touch on this for a second. That y'all heard about in recent news how those scientists tried to construct the faces of Egyptians from mummies that they found.
They've been trying this
for a long time.
And it's interesting because I'm like, which mummy sarcophagus did you find that in, our burial ground? Because if we got artifacts that are the youngest stuff is tens of thousands of years old, how is it? And that's before anybody predated anyone lighter than me being being in Egypt. Like, so it's just interesting. But to get back on topic, it's well, what people like, it's a lot of to me, like, the more I learned and read about like Egypt, the more I found out just how young the history of it is. Like, like I just brought up, that's the Sphinx is the youngest of the wonders of the world. I mean, like, there's structures in Africa that are just so much older than stuff that you find in Egypt. But because Egypt stuff is like, you can see a pyramid anywhere, basically, like within miles of it. So it's, when you find structures like that, it kind of adds a little whimsy. And I think it's also because they're so large.
Yeah, the scale of it, because aliens built it for them or helped them build it, because
Oh, really?
But it's really the scale of it. I mean, it's humongous.
Oh, excuse me, I have a phone call. I don't know who it is.
Yeah, but I mean, the scale is amazing. I haven't been there. I got to see it, but really the precision is, from what I understand, is, is just really what a marvel is. It is the exactness of how they got everything, and just knowing how much weight, the tonnage, like, where did the stuff come from? Where did the materials come from? It's really mind boggling. But like Dr. Clark said, by the time the white man started showing up in Egypt, Africa was old and tired. There's been a lot of dynasties, man. It's been a long time. So he's old and tired. And he talks about us, got to unify and rise again, but like, they didn't beat them when they was at the top of the game. They didn't beat us at the top of the game. It's been a long, man. We've been here a long time on this planet, man. It's been longer than 6,000 years. I don't care what they say in that book.
Oh, it's way longer than that. I mean, they got sculptures of like the Black Madonna in Japan from travelers from Africa, or I should say from Egypt, that trade routes. I mean, trade routes didn't just start when the Roman Empire was around. Like, people were going around looking, exploring, trading spices and goods for forever. And like it's in the book, what's it, Black Genesis. There talks about how there's Egyptian and like other artifacts from the continent that are throughout the world that predate thousands and thousands and thousands of years. So it's just interesting. I mean, like, that stuff, like, I'm for real, guys. If you haven't read it, look up Black Genesis. If you don't want to read that, look up Christianity Before Christ, because though it talks about the religious text of it, it's actually a story of how people moved throughout history and the routes they took in Africa. It's some good information there.
I went and grabbed the book. I haven't read this yet. I want to check it out though. When Egypt Ruled the East. So you were talking about Japan and Asia and all of that. So I'm pretty interested to dig into this one.
Africa ruled the East, and I never even, like, knowing that they had trade routes, I never even thought about that, how they ruled these. I gotta pick that book up.
Yeah, well, it's like, because the framing of this educational system, they talk like, if white people ain't do it, it don't matter, or it didn't count. Like, acting like Christopher Columbus, the first person to sail the damn waters. Like like they literally got Egyptian boats that are still together, that's, still float. Like, it's just insane, man. Like, like nobody can figure out how to carve out a tree. I was watching some of that showing how They would carve out trees and create canoes and stuff like that. Like the people built, they built the pyramids, but they couldn't figure out how to float on water. Like it is ridiculous.
They started math.
Uh-oh. But can I ask a question before we get into the math?
Yeah, go for it.
Just because y'all mentioned the pyramids and the scale of it, like if we had to compare it to something that we've been around, like how large are they?
Let me look that up real quick.
Yeah, I got a statement I want to make, but I'm not sure because I know it's something about a mile.
Let's say okay. So initially standing at 146.5 meters or 481 feet tall, the Great Pyramid was the tallest man-made structure in the world for more than 3,800 years. So that's the size of the Great Pyramid of Giza.
Okay, so 480 something feet.
481 feet tall.
Okay.
And they were saying
that's almost 2 football fields.
Oh, that's more than 2 football fields.
Is it? Well, 300 feet is.
Maybe I'm wrong. No, that's not. I'm wrong. Well, what's the football field? 100 yards. So that's
300 feet though. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's
how many feet did you say it was now?
That's about a football field and a half.
Football field and a half.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is what I was looking for. It says the base of the Great Pyramid is a square with each side measuring 230 meters or 756 feet and covering an area of 13 acres.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah. So that's almost 800 feet. That's almost 3 football fields, right? Yeah. 900 feet would be 3 football fields.
Yeah. So that's about 2.5 football fields.
Yeah. That's bananas.
Wow. That's crazy.
I've never been there. I can't wait to go. I definitely want to see it. You know, I don't know much about the country now though. You know, like now the country is, you know, the Arabs have taken over the country. You know, they're destroying history inside of there. And, you know, they pushed the dark-skinned Africans to the sides of the civilization. I don't know where it goes from here. Now, and they all actually trying to claim that it's the Middle East. Which is,
you know what, to that point.
The entire Middle East is Africa, by the way.
To speak on that as well. The Muslim conquest of Egypt by the Arabs took place between 639 and 646 AD. So they've only really been there for 1,400 years.
Yeah.
Which is interesting too.
Go ahead, Chris. What was you gonna say?
We were talking about the skin tone, the color, the Middle East, and all of that. It was interesting. Do you remember the little girl that was in Jael's preschool class? What was it, Amani, or something like that? Cute, beautiful little girl. And I remember asking, "Where are you from?" Well, her family's from Egypt, and I remember being thrown off because she didn't look black to me. She didn't look African to me. And when you're just talking about the whole Middle Eastern thing and how they're trying to claim it as, it's like, even just, I don't know. It's just, it was interesting to me. That was the first time I had heard or seen someone from the continent who looked like they were from the Middle East, if that makes sense. So if they looked like they were from an Asian country as opposed to an African country. Does that make sense?
Yeah. You know, just the conquerors have been in, you know, knocking at the doorstep of Africa forever. So the Arabs are no different.
Yeah.
And that's what that's John Henry Clark talk about it. You know, you started working with the Arabs to try to get the white man off your back, but he was like, you just traded one conqueror for another. You got the white man off and the Arab jumped on. And, you know, they just riding it out. Including the slave trade, of which we don't talk about, particularly the trade going east through Egypt, by the way. It's pretty interesting.
Oh, say more.
Yeah, well, you know, the Western slave trade, white folks came this way. The Arabs was in Africa stealing black folks doing the same thing, going east with them. But, you know, somehow they seem to get a pass in the community. Well, I guess it's obvious why they get a pass, because us in particular in my circles were affected by the Western slave trade. So I'm assuming that's the one that we talk about the most. But there was an Eastern slave trade at the same time. That's why they say slavery's still going on today. You find, like, in these Arab countries, you find the little black Africans locked up and they doing something ignorant. They never stop. It's the same. It's still going on. It's just not as widespread and as much. But it's just always interesting because you see brothers, getting in Islam and all of that. But I never hear them really talk about, what Islam did to Africans.
So there's a lot of history about, like, so once the Arabs got into Africa, like, because the majority of them were Islamic, and it talks about how they even after they came in, how on the Quran you're not supposed to have like idols and things of that nature, just like most Abrahamic religions. But they when they came in, they never did anything to the pyramids or the Sphinx, because in their minds these were, let me read this correctly, these things were believed to have great supernatural powers. And it's one story that was quoted from the 13th century, was talking about how several Muslim leaders, such as I'm gonna say Yazid III, ordered destruction of the pharaonic monuments like the pyramids and their statues and things of that nature. However, there was considerable evidence of popular local pride in the monuments, so much so that the monuments were never destroyed out of fear of causing riots. The monuments of the pharaonic Egypt were generally seen as posing magical powers and were viewed as objects with respect by ordinary Egyptians, so the people who are already there. Despite the fact the Quran execrates ancient Egyptians, especially reprehensible, as late as 1378, it was reported that not only Muslim peasants would go burn incense at night in front of the Sphinx while uttering prayers, which were said to empower the Sphinx to speak. This was stuff that was written down in that time period. And so then the holy the which was led by a Sufi, which was a holy man. He attacked the Sphinx, him and his followers, and it says, this is local legend from that time period, says that this caused a massive sandstorm, which then caused the people to lynch that dude and kill him, and that's when everything ended. So since then, no one has ever from them who call themselves Egyptians now have ever done anything to him, and that's why they won't do anything to him. Apparently, this is based on.
Well, that's outdated, because these new Egyptians apparently don't care, because they in there destroying a lot of historical evidence, and this, that's interesting.
For people looking up this, trying to find this information, if you just look up Pharaonism or whatever, people who are the pre-Islamic people who were there, there's a lot of study into the people of Egypt before Arabic rule and things of that nature. So if you look that up, there's some resources for you. I don't actually have a book for it. I'm just looking it up now, but I'll look more into it later if we ever come back from this.
Yeah, and I've been over here just doing some research, just looking up some other stuff, and I just find it very interesting that Egypt had many female pharaohs. Mm-hmm. And that's not something that's talked about frequently. I know I did. I can't speak for everyone else, but when I think about rulers, especially, almost everywhere, it's hard to, as a female, it hasn't been common for there to be female rulers of countries. But even, back then, it wasn't as common, and especially in, Africa is such a strong place. The whole continent is such a strong place that it's interesting that, a woman was able to hold those positions when I know I thought that everything would have been so male dominated. So that's just intriguing. Now I'm about to look up to see if what other countries had female pharaohs. But I just thought that it was interesting that, and I know that was one of the things, because I always knew that about Nefertiti, is that, like, didn't she disappear? They never really found out what happened to her, because they didn't like her taking over and running things. But I hadn't really paid attention to the other female pharaohs and how that went. So just curious what other countries had female pharaohs, especially back then when it seems as if things were so male dominated, but maybe they weren't as much as I thought that they were.
Well, no, it's because it's so the pharaoh's throne was actually just a sculpture of Isis, right, or Asur, or that's how you pronounce her, Esa.
Sorry.
Issa, yeah. So you like your power came as the king came was dependent upon her. That's why they sat on her as their throne because it came through her that you like. So back from what I understand, as opposed to like the Western culture where your authority came through your fraternal parentage, like your last name and things of that nature. And Africa and other like countries like that, not continents, like well, there's other country. Africa's not a country. Like in places in that area, you you got your, I guess you got a lot of your, what's the term I want to use? Your I got whatever class of person you were was dependent upon your mother. So
Mm-hmm.
that whole way of thinking can be, I guess you can see it coming through that, because like you know how do you get like where you come from? You come from your mother. Where you get your power from? That things of that nature.
So I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say it. It seems to be that that's how things were going until Christianity came through, which is so male dominated.
Well, no, you gotta remember. So before Christianity really got into Europeans' hands, it wasn't like the Mother, the Father, and the Holy Spirit. And this is also, you can read this in Christianity before Christ. It was the Father, the Mother, and the child, which the Egyptians took and moved over, and then that became, Osiris, Isis, and Horus. Like
Mm-hmm.
there was a like what was it? I remember like just like I remember in the book they draw parallels between Jesus and Horus, especially, and how like the stories of Horus's childhood and Jesus' childhood kind of parallel in terms of things that have happened, and like how in Egypt, little kids would have. There's two different charms. There's the Horus as a child, and the Horus as an adult. That this like kind of like how Jesus, there's books in the Bible that just went missing, and like after he's a kid, 18 years of his life is just missing, and then he's an adult. That's the next time you see him. Well, in Egypt, the whole the whole catalog of Horus's life is just documented very well. So as a kid, for protection, you would get a Horus charm, and then when you got an adult and you transition between, like there's a difference between a physical adult and a spiritual adult in
Mm-hmm.
Egypt as well. So like once you reach like I think your 32nd or 33rd birthday, you would then transition to get to the adult Horus protection charm and like all the stuff that it means. But like that's for people who are like really learned and did all the stuff they're supposed to do. And of course, if you made it that old, because back then life
Mm-hmm.
expectancy was the same as
That's
now.
what you said that. I was like, they waited that long? Because folks were barely making it that long back
What I
then.
mean, it was spiritual significance because like I think like you start your journey. I think what was it? I have to read the book again, but I don't want, because I don't want to misquote it. But I think it was 12, and then like once you turn 30, you've spiritually grown 18 years, and then you're supposed to go through some stuff, and then you get your next charm or whatever or what have you. So it's a lot of the stuff that they practiced then was what they got from back before they migrated from Ethiopia, the Ethiopian Empire, which is of course where I was referencing where they were original, or at least the oldest version of Christianity was, to my knowledge, before it was dispersed throughout the rest of the world as it is now. So yeah, but it was the Catholic people who changed it, or King David or whatever, not King David or whatever, King James or whatever, who changed it from the father to the father, the wife, the father, the mother, and the child, and the son. They changed that to the Holy Spirit. They took the woman out of it. So in Africa, it was always been a man, woman, and child. I mean, because think about it. When you're goddess, when you're believing in a pantheonic system where it's not monotheism, and you as a king or pharaoh get your power from the queen deity,
Yeah. And that's
and
what I'm saying. We didn't believe in monotheism until Christianity came in. You know what I'm saying? That's why I had you remember we had read Things Fall Apart. That's what that whole book was about. How we naturally respected, revered, celebrated, and honored all of the different gods and goddesses. prior to being told that we were doing it wrong.
But I think the way you're saying it, you're making it seem like if Christianity didn't predate this belief system in Egypt. Like the Egyptian belief system came from Coptic Christianity that came from Ethiopia.
Say that again.
So, like when I was saying at the beginning,
no, just repeat what you just said. That last statement.
So the Egyptian Pantheon, that belief system, is a derivative of Coptic Christianity that came from Ethiopia.
So prior to Christianity,
yes,
what was the religious belief in Egypt?
So Egypt didn't exist. Yeah, Ethiopia had its empire, and then people ventured out, and then they not funded, but they started Kush, or Kemet, which became Egypt as it is today. And those people were travelers. They came up there, and then they started the civilization up there as they came out of Ethiopia. But they took with them their belief system, and as people tend to do when they leave a place, at least back then, stories change because most things were oral. Only like high priests and like really wealthy people or kings or queens and whatever had the money to afford parchment. So everything was oral tradition. So over time, you know how things change when you go to a different area and you're down in the same place for a long time. Stories change, belief systems change, but a lot of the names stay the same. Like if I spoke the language, I'd be more intelligent about it. But if you go over to like those older temples in Ethiopia that predate stuff that's in Egypt, a lot of the names that you will see Ashur, you will see Heru, you will see Aset, and they're talking about this, and they're talking about the same story of like Jesus and Mary, and it's just different names. And the Egyptians took those names. I mean, the people who became Egyptians went to Egypt, started their whole pantheon, and used pretty much the same names, and just had different stories.
I don't know about that, brother.
Look it up, man. Read the book.
I'm not hip to that. I've never heard that. I know the first hint of monotheism that, from my understanding, I had to Google the shit myself because I was like, I'm looking like, I don't know, man, because I've heard Akhenaten was into monotheism, but I'm not seeing anything that predates anything like that.
I'm telling you, read the book Christianity Before Christ. It talks about all this. It gives you dates. It gives you when these empires were happening. Like it's not even a long book, but it really talks about how Christianity Before Christ. It talks about how the Egyptians are the Egyptians that went into Egypt and founded Egypt and all that. They took their belief system, which was rooted in Christianity, and then through time, like I was just saying, it just became its whole new thing.
So I'm looking at something now where they're saying that the first evidence of monotheism came from Akhenaten, but he ruled in the 14th century. But Egypt itself had been around for 2,000 years prior to that.
Yes, well, what I'm saying is the Ethiopian Empire, it was not in the way that we think about, like, let's say Catholicism, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit being one and the same. Ethiopians firmly believed there was a father, a mother, and a child in divinity.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how they looked at it. Mm-hmm. So modern day Christianity is all about one God. Back then, it was not that way. That's what I'm saying. And I'm saying the Egyptians took the names and they started their own pantheon because, as we know it, there's like hundreds of Egyptian gods. Mm-hmm. that they essentially were lesser deities that were for like day-to-day stuff, like someone like your god
rains,
of like
rain, water,
stuff like that. Like they just added to their basic belief system that came from Ethiopia and started their own pantheon from that. But even then, the Ethiopians believed in a divine mother, divine father, and divine child. That is, I'm telling you, if you read that book.
Okay, I could receive that, but I'm talking about the whole switch, the complete switch from, even if they did believe in a divine mother, father's child, or whatever, they still had, as you said, smaller gods that they still prayed to, worshiped, revered, right?
That was the Egyptians, yes.
Right. but excuse me, and then all of a sudden it became monotheism, meaning that there was just one. Prior to that,
that was when the Western world got to it.
Ain't that what I said in the beginning?
But what I was saying, Auntie, is what I was trying to say is there's a key difference between old original African Christianity and modern day Pepsi Cola Christianity.
I wasn't talking about that though. I was talking about ancient. I said things changed once the European Christianity came with the monotheism and there being one God. Yeah. Prior to that, we celebrated and honored and revered all of the gods and gave them honor and worship and respect. Now it's if you don't believe, I say when we were told that we were doing it wrong and that we were heathens and witches and all that other stuff, is witchcraft and voodooism and all that stuff, when we are honestly just honoring this universe in its entirety. You know, that's all it is. That's all it is. And so it's just, I don't know, it's just I don't know. Like I said, reading Things Fall Apart really opened my eyes to I don't even know how to classify it. It was frustrating to see how so much had changed in our day-to-day lives and belief systems so quickly. And I really wish we were back where we were, because I feel like the monotheism gives it a respect for the entire world as a whole and everything, as opposed to giving all honor to one thing, one person, or whether it's three or whatever. We had a respect for all of it and all work together. And it's just like, now it's no longer there.
Well, like I said, Auntie, I'm not a archaeologist, but I mean, I'm saying if you read the book, it talks about from a historical aspect of what people were doing at the time. Mm-hmm. So, and we also got to remember, the continent of Africa has so many different empires and changes of the guard and power structures that, like, sure, just in Egypt and where Ethiopia's capital was at the time, the whole western part of Africa was doing something completely different. The whole lower part of Africa is doing something completely different. Like, everyone wasn't on the same thing. Like, if you're talking about like the Orisha, in Western Africa belief system, that was what you're talking about, and that had nothing to do with the people on the west side. That's a different whole pantheon structure. And there's the Southern Africans who believed in a whole other belief system, which would be very similar. They believed in multiple gods, but the stories and things were different. Excuse me. And so it's like, I mean, as we get more to what we're looking at throughout each country, and we learn about these different things, I mean, I'm sure this conversation will come up repeatedly, because it's just, people want to look at Africa like it's just one thing. And there's so much history, because Africa's a huge continent, and all these countries each country has its own, like, each country wasn't even the same as it was back then. Like the map has been redrawn, and like there's so much history that's just there to just like understand, to just take in and interpret. And like I've only said 2 books that I was like, man, this is some heavy stuff, and that only covers such a small portion of the continent. Like as we learn more, but like, yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying that, like, I'm a firm believer that, like, there's definitely a disconnect between Christianity as it is now versus when it was thousands of years ago, and what people were doing back then, especially in the sense of like how they prayed and their belief system. I mean, like, Grandpa, what do you think about this? We completely
I was about to get him in too. Go ahead.
Hello?
I said, what you think about this, Grandpa? What we were talking
about? I was going to say, you were speaking about Christianity. Christianity really didn't come. The Father and the Son, the Holy Ghost thing, didn't even come into existence until 325 AD. And it was done by Roman Emperor Constantine. He the one created the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, and making them one, 3 in 1. Prior to that, it was, like I say, it was kind of monotheism, but not this 3 in 1 spiritual thing.
Polytheism, when it's more than one.
Polytheism.
Yeah. Like, see, Grandpa he over here letting us talk. He's like, well, if you actually want to know the truth,
right?
Come on over here.
I'm listening, though. Trying to put in 2 cents.
Grandpa be trying to pretend like, be like, I'm just an old man. He's like, he had the date, he had the time. He was like, Constantine His nails were dirty, hair wasn't brushed.
Oh my goodness.
No, see, Uncle Pooh, where are you looking at, man? I feel like you got some stuff you want to drop.
Yeah, no, I got to do my history because I don't really know. I'm not thorough in like Eastern. I'm not thorough in the history of that region, like over there. But I haven't heard this conversation about. It's interesting, and like the stuff that I'm reading, they're saying like, well, it's got a lot to do with the names because like Ethiopia, they're saying Ethiopia is a Greek name actually.
Yeah.
And really like Nubia, and something else is like really more getting back to the older renditions of what Ethiopia was, because they're saying Ethiopia and the Coptics, came around late, right? So I don't know, because I saw like the Coptic Church started in 42 AD. It's just I don't know. Like I said, I don't know enough of the history. I looked up the book, so I'll probably grab it and check it out. And then I want to hear. I got to go back. I got to go back to Dr. Clark. So I got to see what Dr. Clark said about the area, just because I just know him from an integrity standpoint.
And hey, man, if someone who's watching this is like, hey, man, this is bullshit what you're talking about, you misinterpreted, that's fine. I'll read the book again. I've only read it once. But I'm saying from what I remember, from what I recall about it, the Egyptians went out and they took bits and pieces from Christianity, the names and all of that, and that's what it is. Now, if it comes out that I had it wrong and maybe it's reversed, that's fine. I just know that the Egyptian belief system and the Christian belief system are tied into each other intrinsically. Like there is a common link between the two of them, especially how in other Abraham religions they write the Egyptians as these bad people. All of them write them as these bad people, like they were doing some wild stuff during that time of turmoil. But in the Egyptians, people have a very different rendition of history at that time. So it just really depends. Like I like to look at it from a historical perspective. What are people writing down back then that they recorded saying that happened? And a lot of the books that I read are based on things that people are finding about that. So I mean, like I said, I wasn't there. These people weren't there. But to the best of my knowledge, that's what I understand.
Yeah, I'm gonna check it out. It should be interesting. I'm also reading like the outline of history. So you talk about straight history. That's one thing that Dr. Clark always talks about. He's like, y'all just too dewy-eyed with your religion. You just need to strip that away and just look at what happened. Like, because there was people there. Like when Noah built the ark, for the flood, it was people around, and people wrote down history what was happening, right? Like, so as long as you're not caught up in your religion and what I don't know, whatever symbolism and messaging I'm assuming they're trying to get across. that was cute, wasn't it? But there was people there, right? So it's a lot of people around in the area. That's what all I'm saying. I just need to go do some more.
So I got a smart comment. Did Noah have a BFF that he told his homie, like, man, God came and told me to grab two everything? Who wrote it down? Because Noah was so busy rounding up 2 mosquitoes and 2 beetles and 2 cows to write it down. He had a lot to do. So who he tell the story to? Who wrote it down?
Somebody that likes ganja was writing that story down, or LSD, or one of the hallucinogens.
If I remember properly, from historical perspective, the story of Noah was actually taken and imported into the Bible from the story of Gilgamesh, which was talking about the Great Flood. So I think if I understand right, that Gilgamesh was the first written and mass-produced story in history that like anybody could just grab and have. So, and in that story, there was a story about a great flood and a man and his wife who survived the great deluge and all of that. And Gilgamesh went to him looking for how to become immortal and things like that. It's epic. It's a great story.
Yeah, it sounds like all the stories of the Bible, because they all are just renditions of something that was before them. But let's not turn this into
that video that we watched, man. Who was that? What video was that? Was that Dr. Ben who broke down all the stories in the Bible and where they actually came from out of African history?
Oh, that was Ashra Kwesi.
Yes, Ashra Kwesi. Pops, have you seen that?
Oh, he's an excellent resource, by the way. Yeah.
No, I haven't.
Oh. What's
Is that the African origin of Christianity?
Well, I have that book by the African origin of Christianity. That's by of Judaism. No, I got it on Judaism, African origin of Judaism, about the Hebrews. But there's one thing that we need to do is to get a time frame for everything, because we're getting a lot of close to AD and BC. And take for instance the Romans. They didn't even come on the scene until what? Maybe 200 BC or something like that. After the Greeks, and you can go back thousands of years, back in the days of the Philistines and the I can't even think. But anyway, I would like to see some time frame so we don't get the things confused, because we know Jesus was not a Christian, because he was a Hebrew.
Right.
So when it's Christianity, when Constantine come along with the Christian thing of the Father and the Son and the Holy Ghost, that was long after Jesus Christ was dead.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a lot of stuff to that. I mean, man, we before we because we didn't talk so like this is some good chat, but I didn't realize how close we are to the end of the episode. What place are we doing next week? I actually got some people who asked to come on the show when we get to certain places, so I'm just trying to figure out what we're going to do next time.
And I'm actually trying to line up a guest who that's her job. All she does is travel to Africa. She in Africa now. She always in Africa. She barely in the States. Where is she now? I think she was in Ghana when I talked to her the other day. I don't know. She was just in Zanzibar.
Then Morocco or something.
Yeah, Morocco. But I feel like I think she was in Ghana when I talked to her Monday. But I'm trying to line her up to come to, because she can definitely give some insight onto these countries. So
I got somebody who said they want to come on when we do Nigeria, and their quote is, "We're not all scammers." So whenever we get to Nigeria, let me know so we can. But yeah, what's next? What's the next country we're gonna do?
Pick a country, Dad.
Pick a country.
Let me pull up the map of Africa so I can put it on the screen so we can get some with the names.
Well, let's pick Ghana. Let's go to Ghana.
That means somebody get to pull out their pictures.
I heard,
y'all get to rock y'all t-shirts next week.
We're gonna do Ghana. All right, so next week we're doing Ghana. Stay tuned, people, and we're gonna do Ghana. We're gonna do Ghana next week. I'm gonna do a little more research on it because I don't have a good firm grasp of enough about history in Ghana. And so as we do that, Auntie, you want to go first in your final thought?
Final thought was that I want to do more research on the female pharaohs. They're just considered to be pharaohs in Egypt, because I'm just shocked. That's what I knew. Of course, I knew about Nefertiti. One, I didn't realize they considered her to be a pharaoh. Every time I heard it, it was always referred to as Queen Nefertiti, but she was considered to be a pharaoh, and that there were 6 other women who were pharaohs in Egypt. So I just want to do more information, do more research on that, because I think that's pretty cool that the women were ruling such a powerful country, and so many of them. Here we are in the States. We're happy we finally got a Black president, and they had women pharaohs back then. So it's, to me, that's what I said. It just made me question what changed, because to me that shows the respect for just leadership and the person for who they are, as opposed to this male dominated world that we live in, that men rule, women serve. So I just want to do a little more research about that. So I'm interested and I'm curious.
Let us know what you find, Dante. What you got, Uncle Pooh?
Yeah, I'm about to dive into Ashra Kwesi. It says Christianity, the stolen religion from Africa.
Is that the longer one? Did you see my comments? Because the one I'm talking about is like an hour 15. It's not that 10-minute. It's where they're actually showing.
Oh, that was only 10 minutes?
Yeah, it's one. It's one where they're showing pictures inside the pyramids and tombs and stuff.
Yeah,
look up the book Christianity Before Christ. I'm telling you, you're gonna look at it and be like, it's some stuff in there. But what about you, Grandpa? What's your final thought?
I'll check that out too. When I go into something, I'm not just going to read one angle, right? I'm going to read that. I'm going to read something else. I'm going to read this. And then, you got to kind of put together the truth, because everybody has their perspective. And, I don't know if it was the book that you were talking about. There's a lot of prejudice inside archaeology, inside
Black Genesis. That was the book I was talking about.
Okay. Yeah. So, I don't know who this person is. I don't know what their agenda is. I don't know. I need to figure it out. And like I said, I've never heard that before. Like and it's not that I don't know. It's not that I know everything, but I don't know zero. And I've been studying under the master teachers, and I've never heard nobody mention that. Like, not even mention it. Not say it. Like, not even be like hinting at it. So that caught me flat-footed.
Mentioning what? I missed that.
That the Egyptian faith system and Christianity are linked in Africa. Like they're the names and all that, the parallels are there. And I was
no. I know that, but my understanding was like the other way around. Christianity Christianity is stealing from African spirituality. I've never heard anyone say Christianity was around and Egypt formed their spirituality or their understanding of the universe off of that. I've never heard that. I've never heard that.
And I might be wrong, but I'm just saying, like, if you read the book and you come back like, hey, nephew, you got it backwards, that's great. I'll read it again. I have no problem being wrong about that, because I ain't.
It made me curious though. But that's what conversations like this should do. See, I didn't try to say that you wrong. I said, I haven't heard that. Like, what's that book? Let me go read that. Like, maybe I got it backwards, right? And I've already admitted to being foggy in the area anyway. So I'm not in a position to say anybody's wrong.
I think it's important to like try to understand people's belief systems, because that's where you kind of understand how they think.
Yep.
Because you know how you especially if you're being a cynic, you know just how far they're willing to believe something, and if you're just trying to understand them, you know just how devout they are in their firmament.
Yeah. And that's why I asked you, I was like, say that timeline again, like, so I'm trying to understand. It's like your uncle said, I've never heard that before, so I'm just really curious. I really am curious.
Well, it paints the picture that the Ethiopian Empire is way older than I even had the understanding of. Mm-hmm. That it makes it seem like Egypt is so much younger than the Ethiopian Empire. That's not even funny, because like Grandpa said, most of the continent of Africa was under the Ethiopian Empire at one point. That point in time, I am not 100% firm on yet, because I'm still trying to figure it out myself. But for something to be so large, to have that much of a footprint, and when you look at the maps of what Egypt's empire was back in the day, it was nowhere near as big as Ethiopia's empire at its apex. So that makes me think that Ethiopia was in fact older, because for something to be as large and as stable as Ethiopia's empire at its peak was, you can't just conquer stuff like overnight. It takes hundreds and hundreds of years to do that. And for Egypt only to conquer the small amount that it did in the time that it was at its apex, it makes me truly believe that some of that stuff that I was reading it has some merit to it, because it's just so like look at those old maps, especially Grandpa will tell you this Ethiopian empire was huge. It was huge.
The Ethiopian Empire took in way more than what they have as a country now. It was part of Ethiopia was part of the Asiatic black man's run. He was all down through China and everywhere else. That was the Asiatic black man, but we narrowed it down to a little country in Ethiopia. But Ethiopia expanded way further than that. But what I'm really interested in, if you go back into the time of Noah, and Noah had the three sons of Ham, Shem, and Japheth. This is the part that I really want to find out about the transition we're coming in a Western journey, because that's why I picked Ghana, because Ghana has Hebrews. And I'm beginning to understand that Hebrews, all African people that's in this country, we call them African American, but the Negro is different than the rest of them, because he's not a Hamite, but he's a Shemite. So you find out that we really ain't, in the modern term, we really ain't Africans, but we are Hebrews. We're from the thing of Shem, from the same as Jesus Christ was, So there's a difference there, and maybe because of that was the reason they sold us out.
Well, Grandpa, you got
because they weren't, because we're Shemites and they Hamites, and that was a difference there.
Well, Grandpa, you got to talk about the literal sense of what's actually happening here, because the terms.
Wait, that's like a whole nother show.
I know, but I want to say this before I can log. This is my final thought. So to answer to respond to my grandfather, Arabs and Hebrews are the term actually means it's like what I think Hebrew means he who's other side who crosses the river, and
talk up a little bit,
I believe if I remember correctly, we can Google this. I believe Hebrew means he who crosses the river or they who cross the river, and Arab means I believe it's like traveler or something like that. Yeah. So like back then, these people were nomadic and they were labeled as such. Like so,
he who crossed the river was the Shemitic people and not the Hamitic people. And this is where you get the Abraham, Jacob, and Isaac, and you get the 12 tribes of Israel because they were Shemites. They were part of the people that came across the river, and that's where Hebrewism came from. Those people who worship on the other side of the river. And so this is that separation there is the why we're more or less Shemites, and that was the part of that slave trade thing because the Hamites wanted to get rid of the Shemites because we was kind of arrogant, and real intelligent, in force, in knowledge. Well, that's just one way of looking at some of it.
We'll have to touch on that, like Uncle Pooh said, another episode. But next week is what we said, Ghana.
Yeah, Ghana.
Next week is Ghana. We're gonna have to do some research because I didn't, it takes a lot to do some of this stuff, man. But next week is on Ghana. We'll probably have Grandpa and Uncle Pooh Bear at, because they went there, right? Y'all went there?
Oh, Bay, you'll be in meetings.
Yeah, that was why.
But
I picked Ghana because of the Hebrews in Ghana.
Come on,
we were going to fly down to the place where the Hebrews, the Jewish people, they worship. Was a Jewish worshiping tribe of people. They date way back. Remember, Freddie, you was going to take me down there to what they call that tribe?
The Ashanti.
Ashanti, yeah. They were Hebrews from the Shemites. They were Shemites.
Yeah, we got we need to join Ashley and be in Africa 24/7, man.
Next week we're gonna talk about Ghana. We'll see you guys next week. See you, family.
All right, deuces. Love y'all.